Hello, and welcome to the Kitchens, Baths, and Interiors Boot Camp webinar. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to attend this class and learn more about the software. This class is intended for those that are new to or evaluating Chief Architect and focuses specifically on the tools and features for kitchen, bath, and interior design. If you already have a copy of the program, feel free to follow along. If you do not have a copy or you are using an older version, a free trial of the current version can be downloaded from the website. In this webinar, we're going to design a kitchen. We're going to start by drawing and dimensioning the kitchen floor plan, designing custom cabinetry, and adding appliances and fixtures. We will then add a wall elevation and dimension it, and then add a cabinetry schedule. We will then design a tray ceiling, and throughout the webinar we'll be using 3D rendering, but later on we'll look at the different 3D rendering technique features available. Then we'll create a simple layout sheet and conclude the webinar with showing how to design a custom glass shower. So let's get started. When you launch the program, you'll be presented with the dashboard where you can pick a new plan or layout or open an existing file. The very first time you click on New Plan, the program's going to ask you to pick a template to use. Templates are a starting point for each plan you create and are composed of your preferred default settings, such as the default materials being used by objects or how the notation tool should behave. You can create your own custom templates, and the software comes with a residential template and an interiors template. For this project, we're going to use the interiors template and then select we're using US Imperial units. If you had previously selected the residential template or are an existing user and have migrated a template forward from an older version of the software and want to make sure you're using the same template being used in this webinar, you can go to File, Template, New Plan from Template, and in the Documents folder on your computer, find the Data folder for your Chief Architect program, and then select the Templates folder, and make sure you're using the Kitchen and Bath template, and there's both an Imperial and metric version. At the top of the screen, there's going to be different architectural tools that we'll use. There's going to be tools for walls and doors and windows and so forth, and these same tools are also available through the drop-down menus. Off to the right-hand side, there's different side windows for the library browser, the project browser, and the active layer display options. And we'll be using a few of these throughout this webinar, but let's go ahead and close these for now to increase our screen space. And we can always open these up again through these buttons towards the top right-hand corner of the screen. Before we start designing, there's a few personal adjustments that I want to make to the program. First, in our background here, you can see that there's a grid displayed. I personally like to turn this off because I find that it cleans up our view quite a bit. So I'm going to turn this off by going up to View and then Reference Grid, and you can see how it turns off the display of that. Next, as I move my mouse across the screen, you'll notice that there's a blue crosshairs, and I also like to have this turned off while I'm designing. Let's turn this off by going up to View and then Crosshairs. The next adjustment I want to make is to the default rendering technique whenever we take a 3D view. If we take a look at a picture of what this looks like, this is what the standard rendering technique will look like whenever we take a 3D view. This next image shows that same standard 3D rendering technique but with a line drawing overlaid on top of it. I like to work in this standard 3D rendering technique with a line drawing overlaid on top of it because the edges of objects are very clearly defined. So let's get into the default settings and make that adjustment by clicking on the wrench icon in the top of the screen. And then we're going to go down to the 3D view defaults. And under rendering techniques, we're going to go over to where it says standard and specify that we want a line drawing on top of it. And then I'm just going to adjust the thickness, extend, and squiggle settings so that they're set at 1 or 0. And then I'm going to click on OK. And then click on Done, and then whenever we take a 3D view, we'll have the standard rendering technique with a line drawing overlaid on top of it. Next, anytime you start a new plan, it's a good idea to save that plan before you start designing. So to save the plan, I'm going to go up to File, and then Save As. Next, you'll need to pick a safe location on your system to save the file, and I'm going to save it on the desktop where I already have a folder created called KBI Bootcamp, and then I'm just going to call it My KBI Plan, and then click to save it, and then I'm going to close the dashboard, and now we're ready to start working on the design. This is an image of what the final floor plan is going to end up looking like. But in the interest of simplicity and saving some time, we're only going to draw a few of the walls for now. So I'm going to come over to the wall tool towards the top left-hand corner, and when I select it, you'll notice that the tool palette populates with child tools. There's going to be a straight exterior wall, and an interior wall, foundation wall, and there's a glass wall and a glass pony wall, and these two wall types are used for designing showers, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on in the demonstration. But to get started, I'm going to select the straight exterior wall tool, and then come into the plan, and click and drag my mouse across the screen. And as I'm dragging, you'll notice that we draw the wall, and there's also a temporary dimension for the wall. At this point, we're going to use that as more of a guide, and we'll come back through and finalize the dimensions here in a little bit. But for now, we're just going to draw the general shape of the floor plan. And watch what happens on this last wall when I get it aligned with the wall across from it. We get a blue dashed coplanar line letting us know that we're aligned, and then we can just draw this final wall in place. Next, I want to draw a wall right here going across the floor plan. So I'm going to go to the straight interior wall tool, come down to the corner, and left click and drag a wall across the plan. Next, you'll notice that I still have the straight interior wall tool selected. If I press spacebar on my keyboard, it will release my mouse from having that tool selected, and now we can freely select other objects in the plan. Next, I want to dimension this room on the left-hand side, which will end up being the kitchen. If I click on the wall on the left-hand side, you'll notice that we get a dimension going across the room, and this dimension is formatted in inches, and it's locating that wall surface. And the reason it's formatted this way is because we're in the kitchen and bath plan view, which uses the kitchen and bath dimension defaults. We'll talk about this a little bit more later in the demonstration, but for now, notice from left to right across the room, our dimension is 355 inches. And if I wanted to redimension this room, I can simply click on this dimension, type in my new value, and the wall on the left, which I had previously selected, will move to account for the new dimension. So I'm going to press enter on the keyboard, and you can see how that wall bumps out to account for the new dimension. I'm going to do a similar thing with the wall at the top. I'm going to select it. We get our dimension going across the room. I'm going to select the dimension, type in the new value, and press enter on the keyboard, and you can see how that wall at the top moves to account for the new dimension. Next, let's tell the program that this room on the left-hand side will be used as a kitchen, which will produce a room label and help automate the design process. So I'm going to click in the room, and when I do that, in the bottom left-hand corner, you get other options to further interact with the room. I'm going to click on this option that says Open Object, or I could have double-clicked on the room or other object. When I click on Open Object, it's going to pop up the object specification. These specifications in the program look similar in that there's different categories of things on the left-hand side you can adjust. You can make your adjustments in the middle, and then on the right-hand side you can see a preview as to what those adjustments will look like. For now, we're going to change the room type from unspecified to the kitchen room type. And then next, as a designer, you may need to be aware of structural information about your rooms and plans. If we come over to the structure panel, you can see that we have information about the elevations, and more important for interior related designs is probably the finished ceiling value from the finished floor to the finished ceiling. And when I move my mouse into this field, you can see how the graphic on the right hand side lights up with those fields, which just makes it easy to recognize the changes that we're making. Moving down these panels, I'm going to go to the moldings panel, and here you can see that we're using the default molding type affiliated with the kitchen room type. If we wanted to make adjustments to this, we can uncheck this box, come into these fields, and adjust them as we need to. We're going to change the height to 7 1/4 inches, and we'll press Tab. And then if we wanted to add a new molding, such as a crown molding, we can do so here, or make edits to it. If you want to specify a wall covering here, or make other changes to the room type, you can do so through the other panels. Let's go ahead and click on OK. And you can see how we now have that room label, and we also have the living area label displayed. Next, let's take a 3D view by going to our camera view tools at the top of the screen. And then we're going to take a perspective floor overview, which is like a bird's eye view of the model, but it intentionally has the ceiling and roof removed. Using the mouse orbit camera tool, we can left click and navigate around the 3D view. Using the scroll wheel on the mouse, we can zoom in and out. And clicking and holding that scroll wheel, we can pan back and forth. So pretty easy and fun to navigate within our 3D views. Next, let's add a set of double doors over into this area of the plan. So I'm going to go up to the door tools, and you'll notice that there's a couple of different options, a hinge door, a doorway, sliding doors, and so forth. But we're going to use the hinge door tool and come into the plan, and you can see how the program is giving us a little outline indicating where the door is going to be placed, and we're going to click once to place it. Next, let's modify the design of this door to a glass French door. If I click on the door, you'll notice that we get little temporary dimensions letting us know the size of the door. And there's also handles going around the door that you can click and hold to resize the door. And you'll notice there that as I resize it, it changes to a set of double doors. Next, let's double click on the door to open up its specification. And then here under the exterior door specification, we're going to change the door style from using the default door style to using a glass panel door style. If you wanted to change other properties about this door, you could just go down these panels and change the casing style you're using, the lintel, lights, and so forth until you have it designed how you want it. Let's click on OK, and you can see how that change updated in the plan. And then if we go back to the floor plan view and we zoom in over to this area of the plan and we press spacebar and when we click on the door, you'll notice that we get a temporary dimension going from the wall surface to the outside of the casing on this door. We can use this dimension to position the door within this wall. So with the door selected, we're going to click on the dimension, type in our desired value, and when I press enter, the program will move the door to that new dimension. So there we have it in position. And then the other thing worth noting about this temporary dimension is that it's going from the outside of the casing to the outside of the casing and not showing the door width itself. Next, let's place a window over in this area of the plan. So I'm going to come up to our window tools, select the window, and then come in and click once to place it. Next, I'm going to double click on the window to open up its specification. And then we're going to make a few changes to the window size, the window type, and from the floor to the bottom of the window. So let's start with the window width. I'm going to change it to be 72 inches wide, and then press tab and change the height to be 42 inches high. And then we're going to adjust the floor to bottom value to be 44 inches. And then we're going to change the window type to use a triple casement window type. And just like with the door, if you wanted to change these panels, you can just proceed down through the list to make your adjustments. So let's go ahead and click on OK there. You can see how the window updates in the plan. And if we press spacebar and then we click more on the interior side of the window, you'll notice that we get a dimension going from the casing to the wall surface, and we can click on that dimension and type in our new value for how far we want it to be positioned from the wall. Next, let's add a doorway over down in this area of the plan. So I'm going to go up to our door tools, select the doorway, come over down into this area and click once to place it. Next, I'm going to click on the doorway. You can see we get the dimension for the width of it from casing to casing. And we're going to open up the doorway specification. And we're going to specify that we want the width of the doorway to be 42 inches. And press enter. And then we're going to position it so that from the casing it's 30 inches away from the wall. And press enter. And there we have that doorway in our desired position. Next, let's go back to our 3D view and let's rotate our view just slightly here. And if we compare the 3D view to the picture of the final design, you'll notice that the final design is using a different flooring material than what's currently present in the plan. So let's go ahead and apply this material to the plan. So to apply material, I'm going to open up the library browser using the button towards the top right hand corner of the screen. And when we open the library browser, you'll notice that there's different folders we can choose objects and materials from. The core catalogs are what downloads with the program by default when you initially install it. The bonus catalogs and manufacturer catalogs you can download from the website. And then the user catalog is where you can store items that you frequently use or that you custom create and would use in future plans. You'll notice if we expand the user catalog that there's a few items that we're going to end up using in this demonstration. But for now, let's go to the manufacturer folder, and you can see that there's a lot of manufacturers that Chief Architect partners with, and what you see displayed here is just a subset. And for the new flooring material, we're going to go to the Carlisle Wide Plank Floors folder. We're going to expand that and go to the line that we want to use. And then I'm going to click on the material that I want to use, and then you can see a little preview as to what it's going to look like. And when I move my mouse back into the plan, watch what happens to it. You'll notice that it changes to a spray icon indicating we can change a material. And there's different scoping modes for how you can apply the material throughout the plan. And we'll take a look at the scoping modes here in a little bit. But for now, let's just click on the flooring in the kitchen room and then the adjacent room. Next, let's go ahead and place a range and a hood for the range along that back wall. So in the library browser, we're going to scroll down until we find our Wolf manufacturer. And I'm going to expand their folder, come down to gas ranges, and you can see that they have a lot of different models that they offer. And I'm going to click on the 48-inch gas range, and then I'm going to come over to this back wall, and then I'm going to click once to place it. Next, let's rotate our view slightly so it's a little bit easier to see, and let's zoom in. And then next, let's make sure we have this range positioned in this wall where we want it. And to do this, let's jump back to the floor plan view. And if I press spacebar, we can add more permanent dimensions going around this room that locate the room width, window casings, and objects like this range. If I click in this room, in the bottom toolbar, there's an option down here that says Auto Room Dimensions. And when I click on it, you can see how it adds those dimensions going throughout the space. And if we zoom into the range, you'll notice that we get a center line dimension that goes from the range center to the wall surface. And if I click on the range, I can then click on the dimension, type in how far I want it from the wall, and press enter, and it'll update its position. Let's jump back into the 3D view and next place a hood above this range. And so to do that, I'm going to collapse the gas ranges folder, and I'm going to go down to the Pro Ventilation folder, and I'm going to scroll down until I find one that I want to use. And I'm going to select it, and then come into the plan and click to place it. And then I want to make sure that I have this hood exactly centered over the range. I'm going to press spacebar and then select the hood. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, there's an option that says Center Object. And then when I click on this, you can see how I get a little gray dashed line indicating when I'm centered over other objects. And I'm going to click once to get it centered over the range. Next, I want to make sure that from the top of the hood to the floor surface, it's exactly 84 inches. So I'm going to double click on the hood to open up its specification, and then over in the finished floor to top field, type in 84, and then click on OK. And now I have it exactly positioned where I want it. Next, if I know if this combination of hood and range is something I would use frequently, I can form them into an architectural block and add them to my user library. I have the hood selected right now, but if I hold Control on my keyboard and then click on the range, in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see that it says 2 objects currently selected. There's also an option down here that says Make Architectural Block, and when I click on this, it'll form them into a single unit, and then I can move them around together. Let's press undo there for that move we just did, and then if I know I would use this combination again with them selected, I can click on this button that says Add to Library, and I'll add it to my user library, and then I can use it again in future plans. Let's make our library side window a little bit smaller to free up some screen space. And then next, let's talk about how cabinets work in the software. If I come up to the cabinet tool, there's going to be options for a base cabinet, wall cabinet, full height cabinet, and then other cabinet options and kitchen and bath design tools. If I click on the base cabinet and I place it into the plan, let's rotate our view a little bit to look at it head on. You can see that it comes in with a door style, a drawer style, materials, and hardware. Now, what makes a cabinet a manufacturer cabinet in Chief Architect is using content from a manufacturer folder. So in the library browser, I'm going to scroll up to a manufacturer I already have picked out, and that manufacturer is going to be Crystal Cabinet Works. I'm going to expand their folder, and you can see that there's a couple of different lines that they have available. And I'm going to go down to Encore. You can see here that there's different feet, door styles, moldings, hoods, and materials that they offer. For now, we're going to go down to the door styles folder, and there's a lot of different door styles available here. And I'm just going to expand the one that I want to use, click on the door style I want to use, which is going to be a frame door style, and watch what happens when I bring my mouse into the plan. You can see that my mouse icon changes, indicating I'm going to replace the door style on the cabinet with my currently selected door style. And so watch what happens when I click on the door. It's a little subtle there, but it updated. And then I'm going to go back to the drawer and then make the same change. Next, I want to adjust the material on this cabinet. So back in the library browser, I'm going to scroll down to the materials folder that's offered with that line. And I'm going to expand the wood species and finishes folder. You can see that there's a lot of different materials you can use here. And I'm going to expand the alder folder. And I'm going to click on the premium alder material. We'll blend it with a finish here in a second. But when I bring my mouse into the plan, you can see how it changes to a spray icon. And next, let's talk about scoping modes when applying materials. So you can see that I'm currently in component mode, meaning if I click on this cabinet, I'll only change one component at a time on it. But if I switch to object mode, and then I click on this white material on the cabinet, anywhere this white material is located at on this cabinet, it'll be updated with my currently selected material. So I could switch to room mode and update materials throughout the room, or on the floor that we're on, or throughout the entire plan. Next, let's blend this alder material with a finish. So I'm going to come down to the finishes folder. I could also have just clicked on it there. And then I'm going to come down to the Kodiak material. And then this time when I bring my mouse into the plan, you'll notice that's a rolling pin indicating I'll blend the material I have selected with the wood texture. And again, I'm in object mode and I'm in blend mode. So I'm going to click on the cabinet, and you can see how we now have that darker material blended with the alder texture. Next, let's update the countertop material that's currently on this cabinet. And earlier today I was on Silestone's website and I found a material that I really liked. So I'm going to copy that material name, right click and copy it. And then back in the library browser, I'm going to click and paste that name in. And you can see that material that the library browser pulled up, and I'm going to click on it. And if I right click and select show in browser, you see where that's located at under Silestone's folder. And with that material selected, I'm then going to apply it to the countertop. Pressing spacebar, if we take a look at a photo of the finished cabinetry, we're going to end up having a drawer pull and a door pull instead of the knobs that are currently there. So let's add these in the 3D view. And I know that these items are going to be located underneath the bonus catalogs folder. There's going to be a folder that I've already downloaded called Cabinet Hardware Number 2. Under here there's a folder for bars and pulls. And I'm going to come down and select the pull. And then while in object mode in the bottom left hand corner, I'm going to come over to the cabinet and click to swap out the current hardware on the cabinet. Now you'll notice that we need to adjust the door handle height here. So let's double click on this cabinet to open up its specification and make that adjustment, along with looking at some other ways that we can modify cabinets. So I'm going to double click on the cabinet. It's going to open up the base cabinet specification, and then just going through these panels, if we wanted to adjust information about the size of it, the countertop, or have an automatic backsplash generate behind the cabinet, we can do so here. You can also adjust the toe kick. If we go down to the box construction panel, here you can specify whether it's framed or frameless, and information about the overlay amount, or whether it's an inset style. On the front, sides, back panel is where you can design the face, sides, or back of the cabinet in regards to the door and drawer configuration, and we'll take a look at this in a little bit more detail later on. On the door and drawer panel, you can see where we replace the door style through the 3D view. If you'd rather replace it through the dialog, you can do so here. But what we're looking for on this panel is the door handle position. And we're going to come down to where it says down from top and adjust this to be 5 inches and press tab. And you can see how that looks in the 3D preview. If you wanted to add other accessories to it, you could. You can adjust how opening indicators display, add moldings, such as if you had a wall cabinet or a full height cabinet. We'll take a look at this later on, and then adjust other information about this cabinet. Let's go ahead and click on OK to accept that change. And now that I have this cabinet designed, I want to set it as the default so that any future cabinets we add into the plan are based on this style. So with that cabinet selected, I'm going to click on the button in the bottom toolbar that says Set as Default. And when I do that, we're going to get a message saying the base cabinet defaults have been updated, and now whenever we place a base cabinet, it'll be based on this style. So let's go ahead and click on OK to this message, close the library browser, and let's go ahead and delete this cabinet and reposition our 3D view. And next, let's add some cabinets into the design. If we take a look at a photo of the finished design, we're going to start in the corner and then work our way towards the range, and then take copies of these cabinets and reflect them about the range. So speaking of the range, let's press spacebar and select it. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you can still see that it's an architectural block. So let's unblock it so that it's the individual units. Next, let's go up to the cabinetry tools, select the base cabinet, and come along the wall and push it into the corner. You can see that the program turns it into a corner cabinet. And when I initially place it, it has a diagonal front. If I want to change it to a pie cut front, I can double click on it. And down here under options, there's a checkbox for diagonal door. If I uncheck that, you can see how it turns it into a pie cut cabinet, and then I'll click on OK. Next, let's place some cabinets in this space right here. So we're going to go up to our cabinetry tools, come in and click once to place our first cabinet. Next, we're going to resize it so that it's 36 inches wide, and we're going to modify it so that it has 3 drawers. So I'm going to select the cabinet, and you'll notice that I get those temporary dimensions and handles around it. And I'm going to select the handle on the right hand side and resize it to 36 inches. And then we'll open up its specification. And then to modify it so that it has 3 drawers, we're going to go down to the front sides back panel. Now there's a couple of different ways you can modify this cabinet so that it has 3 drawers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select on the double doors, and you can see where that's located within the face items section. Down here you can see the item type that we're using, and you can also see the item height. We're going to change the item type so that instead of using doors, it's a drawer. And you can see how we now have 2 drawers. And then with the larger drawer section selected, there's an option right here that says split horizontally. And when I click it, we now have 3 drawer sections. Now, I want to make sure that they all have the same height. So if I come up here and I select vertical layout parent, there's a button right here that says equalize. And when I click it, it'll make sure all those drawers are the same height. So with that cabinet specified how I want it to be, I'm going to click on OK. And you can see how it looks in the plan. And then next, I want to get a copy of this cabinet in this position. So with the cabinet selected, I'm going to press on Copy, Reflect About Object, and just reflect it about the edge of itself until it's in this area. And then I'm going to hold Control and make sure I have both of these cabinets selected, copy them, and then reflect them on about the range to the other side. Next, we're going to add wall cabinets above the base cabinets, and I already have a wall cabinet started in my user catalog. So I'm going to come over to the library browser, come down to the user catalog section, select the wall cabinet I have saved, and come along the wall and just place it. And then I want to make sure that I have this cabinet precisely positioned along the wall and bumped into the corner. So there it's bumped into the corner. And we can close the library browser. And then if we take a look at the photo of the finished design, you can see that the wall cabinet has a molding at the top. So let's go ahead and add that into the plan. So I'm going to double click on the wall cabinet to open up its specification. And then we're going to go down to the moldings panel, and you can see that I already have a light rail molding selected. So to add the crown molding, we're going to first click on the Add New button. This is going to open up the library browser, and the scoping of the library browser is going to be limited to molding-like objects. So I'm going to come into the library browser, and under the moldings folder, you can see that there's a lot of different molding types you can select from. And what we're really looking for here is the shape of the molding that we want to use. The molding we're going to use just has a basic rectangular shape, so we can select from the base moldings folder that we're just using the very first one, and then click on OK. And over in the preview, you can see where that's coming in, and so we know we need to make some adjustments to it. First, let's adjust the size of the molding, and I'm going to start with the width by clicking in here and typing in my new width, and then pressing Tab to move to the height field, and then typing in my new desired height, and you can see how it's starting to shape up. And then next, we're going to adjust the horizontal and vertical offset. Let's start with the vertical offset, and I'm going to click once in here, and I'm going to move it up 5 5/8 of an inch. And one key there for the vertical offset, since we're moving it away from the cabinet box, we need to have the negative sign in front of it. And if we press Tab, you can see how that's starting to come in. And if we take a look at the back of it, you can see that we need to adjust the horizontal offset as well. So we're going to click on the horizontal offset field, type in how far we want to move it, and press Tab, and you can see how it's positioned in relation to the cabinet. Let's go ahead and click on OK to add those changes back into the plan, and you can see how that molding's starting to come in. And next, let's get some copies of this cabinet along the wall. So I'm going to select the cabinet, select Copy, Reflect About, and again, I'm just going to reflect it about the edge of itself. And one thing you might have noticed there is that the molding regenerated. Moldings are smart and they'll regenerate so that they're appropriately placed. And then next, let's get one more cabinet in this position right here. So with the cabinet selected, we'll again copy and reflect it about the edge of itself. And then next, let's get 2 more cabinets over in this area, and then we'll come back and place this cabinet. So I'm going to hold Control to select another wall cabinet, press Copy, reflect it about the range. And then next, let's come back into this space above the hood and get a cabinet over there. So I'm going to come over to the cabinetry tools, select the wall cabinet, and then just move my mouse into this space. And this particular cabinet might be easier to add in our floor plan view. So let's jump back to the floor plan view, move our view down, and we can actually work in 2D and 3D at the same time by selecting our 3D tab at the top and pulling it side by side with our floor plan view. And then we'll zoom into this area, and in the floor plan view, we'll select that wall cabinet, press Copy, Reflect About, and just make sure we get it reflected about the edge of itself. And there you can see it's in position, and at this point it's clear that we need to make some adjustments to it. Let's first adjust it so that it's as wide as that space is. And then using the handle on the bottom, let's adjust the height of it so that's more appropriate. Let's rotate our 3D view. And then one thing we'll need to do is we'll need to remove the light rail. It's currently not displaying, but it's there, it's just merging into the hood. So I'm going to double click on the cabinet, go down to the moldings panel, make sure I have the light rail selected, and simply click on Delete. And then click on OK. And there we have that cabinet in position. And then that cabinet's starting to look good. And let's make our 3D view our full screen again. And if we take a look at a photo of the finished design, the next thing we need to do is add a wall niche between the range and the hood. So to do that, the wall niche tool is located underneath the window tools. It says wall niche, and I'm just going to click once in this area, and then I'm going to press spacebar and then select it to resize it. And I'm going to open up its specification and specify that the width of it is going to be 36 inches. Press Tab, specify that the height is going to be 15 inches. Press Tab, and then I'm going to adjust the floor to bottom to be 42 inches. And then click on OK. And you can see how the size is correct. And then let's just make sure we have it centered over the range using that center object tool. And there we know it's precisely centered over the range. Next, let's apply a tile backing to this wall niche. So I'm going to open up the library browser, and then I'm going to clear our last search. And then I'm going to type in the name of the tile material that I already have picked out. I'm going to select it and right click on it and click Show in Browser. And you can see that this material comes from our manufacturer, Mercury Mosaics. So with that tile material selected, I'm going to come over to the wall niche and click once to apply it. Next, let's press spacebar, close the library browser, and rotate our view so that we're looking at this wall with the window. And this wall is going to end up being our sink wall. And if we take a look at a photo of what this wall will end up looking like, we're going to end up having a base cabinet, a dishwasher, a sink, a trash pull-out, and then another base cabinet along this wall. So let's go ahead and get back into the plan. And let's press spacebar, go up to our cabinetry tools, select the base cabinet, and come in and place it along this wall. And we're going to place all of our base cabinets and make sure they're sized appropriately first, and then come back and place the fixtures. So with this base cabinet selected, I'm going to resize it to the final width, which will be 18 inches. And then next, we're going to place a cabinet right here for the dishwasher. And then next, we're going to place a cabinet for the sink. And I'm going to select it, and I'm going to resize it to be 36 inches wide. And watch what happens to the door there. It changes to a set of double doors. And then next, we'll place a base cabinet for the trash pullout. And this cabinet needs to be 18 inches wide as well. And then we're going to go ahead and place one final cabinet on the end here. Let's make sure we have it bumped up against the other ones. Now that we have the cabinets in the space, let's come back and modify them as appropriate. Our first cabinet is looking fine, but in this space we're going to have a dishwasher. So I'm going to open up the library browser, come down to my user catalog, and I already have a dishwasher picked out from Sub-Zero Cove. So with that dishwasher selected, I'm just going to come over to the cabinet, click once, and you can see how that dishwasher gets applied. Pressing spacebar. Next, we're going to have a sink in this cabinet, and I already have a sink picked out from Kohler that I'm going to use. And I'm going to come over to the cabinet and click once. And if we rotate our view just a little bit, you can see how the program automatically inserts it, and it cuts a hole in the countertop. And if we press spacebar and open up that cabinet specification, and we click on what was the drawer, you can see that the program has now named it as a false drawer. Let's cancel out of this. And then next, let's add the sink faucet, and this is going to be a little bit easier to do in the floor plan view. So I'm going to go back up to the floor plan and shift our focus to this area. Select the faucet, and then come over and just click once to place it. And then I'm going to press spacebar, select it, and use that move handle to get it approximately where I want it. And then just make sure I have it centered up on that cabinet. And that's looking good. So let's go back to the 3D view, press spacebar, and this next cabinet is going to be a trash pullout, which has a few more moving parts to it. Let's start by double clicking on it to open up its specification. To get started with this trash pullout cabinet, if we take a look at a photo of the final design, what we have here is a drawer that's a framed style. So let's go ahead and remove the current door so that we just have one large drawer to start with. So I'm going to click on the door and click on the delete button. This removes the door, but we still have an opening there. So we're going to press delete on the opening, and now we have one large drawer. Now, as mentioned, we want this drawer to be a framed style. If I click on this drawer, there's an option down here that becomes available that says Appliance Door Drawer. This button allows us to control an individual cabinet face item. For example, if this cabinet had multiple drawers and for some reason we wanted to change the drawer style on only one of the drawers, we can click on this button and pick a new drawer style for a single drawer. Additionally, this button allows you to insert a fixture behind a door or drawer. So in the case of a trash pullout with a framed drawer style, we're going to use this option. So we're going to click on Specify, and the first thing we're going to change is the drawer style. So we're going to click on Library, and then we're going to come down to the Manufacturer folders, select Crystal Cabinet Works, the Encore line, Door Styles. If we scroll down to Camden, we're going to use the Camden door style in its place this time because it's the frame style. I'm going to click on OK to accept this, and you can see how it's coming in the preview, and we'll make adjustments to the material in a little bit. But just continuing down this dialog, the next adjustment we need to make is to the drawer handle so that it's resting towards the top of the drawer. So underneath the drawer handle option where it says vertical position, we're going to check distance from top and specify that it's 1 inch from the top and press tab, and you can see how that's starting to look in the 3D preview. And then next, under drawer box pullout, here's where you can specify what's going on behind the face item. So we're going to click on Library, and I already know the item number that I want to use, so I'm going to type that in now. You can see it pulled up in the library browser, and I'm going to use this option from ReviShelf, which if we right click and select Show in Browser, you can see that I had this saved in my user catalog, and I'm going to click OK to apply it to the plan. Next, let's click OK to this dialog, and we're back on the front sides back panel of this cabinet. And if we want to show this drawer open so that we can see that trash pull out, we can select the drawer. Down here there's a field that says percentage open. Let's specify that it's going to be 20% open, and then down below we're going to click on show open for the drawers. And there you can see how that's coming in. And then next, let's click on OK so that we apply that to the plan. And you can see how that looks in the plan. And then next, we're going to use the material eyedropper tool, which allows us to select a material off an existing object and to apply it to a new object. So we're going to select the material off one of our other base cabinets, make sure we're in object mode, and then apply it to this drawer. Pressing spacebar, if you know that you would use this cabinet again in future plans, you could select it and then add it to your user library. And that's going to complete all of the cabinets along this wall. Let's zoom out just a little bit, and next let's place a custom backsplash on this wall and the range wall. So the custom backsplash tool resides underneath our cabinetry tools. You can see it says custom backsplash, and with that tool selected, I'm just going to come over to the wall and click once to place it, and then place it along this wall as well. And this backsplash tool is smart. For example, if we click on this window and we move it within this wall, the backsplash will update so that it's not merging through the window. Let's press on undo there. And then next, let's adjust the material that's being used for the backsplash. I'm going to come over to the library browser and type in the name of the material that I want to use. Select the material. If we right click and show in browser, this material also resides under our manufacturer, Mercury Mosaics. So with that material selected, I'm going to switch to room mode, and now when I click on this white subway material, anywhere that it's located at in the room will update. So I'm going to click, and you can see how the backsplash tile updated along both of these walls. Let's press spacebar, and next we're going to add an island over into this area of the plan. But before we do that, let's adjust our 3D view so that's a little bit easier to look at the plan. And let's actually pull up our 3D view and floor plan view side by side. And I'm going to add the island in the floor plan view. And this island is already saved in the library browser. I'm going to come down. You can see where I have it saved as an architectural block. And then I'm going to come into the plan and click once to place it. You can see how it gets added into the plan, and let's close the library browser. In the plan, we're going to press spacebar and then just move it out a little bit. And making islands is pretty easy in Chief Architect. It's really a matter of placing cabinets, designing the cabinets, and placing other fixtures around the cabinets, group selecting them to turn them into an architectural block, and then adding them to your user library. Next, if we go back to the floor plan view and we select the island, you can see that we get temporary dimensions going from the island to the front of the range. And if we click on this side, we get a temporary dimension going from the island to the dishwasher. Let's dimension our island going from cabinet to cabinet. And we're going to do this using our end-to-end dimension tool. And just to make it a little bit easier to work with, we're going to turn off our temporary dimensions using this option in the toolbar on the right-hand side. You can also turn off your temporary dimensions by going to View, Temporary Dimensions. But next, to manually add a dimension, we're going to go up to our manual dimension tools. And depending on what you're working at any particular point in time, one of these dimension tools may be more appropriate to use than others. But for this example, we're going to use the end-to-end dimension tool. And we're going to come over to the cabinet that hosts the sink, left click, and drag it, and you can see there it's picking up the countertop. And we're just going to come over to the base cabinet on the island. And there we have our first dimension in place. And then we're going to come over to the base cabinet and then dimension it to the cabinet in this area of the plan. And you can see how we have two dimensions. And we're going to press spacebar, select the island. You'll notice how the dimensions are now gray. And we can click on those dimensions, type in a new value, and press enter, and the island's position will update. And then we'll do the same thing for this dimension. And there we have the island in position. And then at this point, you could delete those dimensions if you don't need them anymore, or you can move them so that they're in a more appropriate position. Next, while the island's an architectural block, we can't click on any of the individual cabinets or fixtures, but if we unblock it, we can then select these items and modify them. Next, if we take a look at a photo of the final island, you'll notice that the island is extending over the seating area and waterfalling down to the floor. So let's modify the countertop. Currently the countertop is automatically generating with the cabinets, but in order to waterfall it down over the edges and adjust it over the seating area, we need to convert it to a custom countertop. So back in the floor plan view, we're going to press spacebar, and then we're going to select our base cabinet tool, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do a marquee select over all these cabinets, and then convert the countertop into a custom countertop, which will separate it from the cabinets. So with the base cabinet tool selected, I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard, left click, and marquee in this area of the plan. You can see in the bottom left hand corner that it says I have 9 objects selected, which are the 9 base cabinets. And then I'm going to press this button which says Generate Custom Countertop. And then if we press spacebar, now we can select the countertop and modify it independently of the cabinets. So the first thing we need to do is we need to modify the countertop overhang so that it matches the countertop thickness so that we have enough space to waterfall it. If we double click on one of these base cabinets, we can see the countertop properties that it inherited. We can see that the thickness is 1.5 inches, the overhang is 1 inch, so we know we need to modify the overhang by an additional 1/2 inch. Let's cancel out of this, and back in the plan I'm going to select the countertop, and I'm going to left click and drag it out, and as I'm dragging I'm going to press tab. This lets us enter how far we want to extend it, and we're going to extend it a -1/2 inch in the Y coordinate and press on OK. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side, extend it and press tab, and then bring it up 1/2 inch in the other direction. Next, we're ready to waterfall it. So with the bottom edge selected, we're going to click on the waterfall button, and in the 3D view you can see how that looks. And let's make our 3D view our full screen. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll press spacebar, select the edge, and then waterfall it down. So there you can see that it's waterfalling, and then the last step we need to do is extend it over the seating area. So I'm going to select the edge by the seating area, start dragging this edge out and press tab, and specify that we're going to bring it out 12 inches and press enter. And there you can see that our countertop design is complete. If we swing our view around, the next thing we're going to do is automatically insert a microwave into this cabinet. So let's open up the library browser, and in my user catalog I already have a microwave from Wolf picked out that we're going to use, and I'm going to bring my mouse into the plan and click on the cabinet, and you can see how the program updated the cabinet. So the top portion is the microwave, and then we have a drawer on the bottom portion, and we need to bring the microwave out a little bit so that it's flush with the bottom drawer and the cabinet next to it. So with this cabinet selected, there's an option here that says open symbol. I'm going to go ahead and click it, and we're not going to go into too much detail in this webinar on symbols and what you can do with modify them. But what we're going to do is modify the Y position with it in regards to how it's arranged in the cabinet. So we're going to come in this field, and I already know that I need to bring it out 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to press tab and then click on OK. And there you can see that it's appropriately positioned within the plan. And more information about modifying symbols is available on the Chief Architect website. If we take a look at a photo of what the finished design looks like, next we need to get full height cabinets and a fridge and freezer along this wall. And I already have these items saved as an architectural block. So I'm going to come into the plan view to add them. Zoom out a little bit, select the architectural block I have, click once in the plan, and then I'm going to position them so that they're up against this wall, and then push them into the corner, and then I'm going to unblock them. And then if we come back into the 3D view, and we rotate our view around, you can see how that looks. Next, let's close our library browser, close the 3D view that we're in, and then next, create a wall elevation of our range wall. This is a photo of what the final wall elevation is going to look like. So to get started, we're going to take a wall elevation camera and point it at this wall. We'll then clean up the view a little bit and then automatically add wall elevation dimensions. So to get started, we're going to go up to our orthographic camera tools. We're going to select the wall elevation and we're going to come in and just click to point it at the range wall. You can see how it comes in, and we need to clean up a few things about it. First, you'll notice that there's opening indicators on these wall cabinets, and for this view, I do not want to see them displayed. So we're going to turn off the display of these by turning off the layer for that. So I'm going to select the wall cabinet, and I'm going to open up the active layer display options. And here you can see a layer for opening indicators, and I'm just going to uncheck the display of that. And you can see how that cleans up the view. Let's close out of the active layer display options. And the next thing I want to do is clean up the display of this fridge and full height cabinet area and clean up the display of this cabinet on the left hand side so that it's just a little bit nicer to look at. So what we're going to do is simply create a CAD polyline over these objects and then match the color with the base cabinet material. So to add the CAD polyline, I'm going to go up to the CAD tools. Make sure I have the rectangular polyline selected, come in until I snap on the corner of the countertop, and click and drag it into the bottom left-hand corner until I snap. And then I'm going to press spacebar, select that CAD polyline, and then open the object. And then underneath the fill style, we're going to specify that the pattern type we're going to be using is a solid pattern. And you can see that the color is currently black, but right here we can pick a new color. And there's an option right here for an eyedropper. And if I click on it, and then come over to the cabinet material and select it, and then click on OK, you can see how that's going to update. And then let's click OK to add it to the plan. And you can see how that now looks in the plan. And then let's drag it down so that it is not over the countertop. And that looks pretty good on this side. So let's go ahead and create a copy of it and move it to the other side. So I'm going to click the copy button, zoom out a little bit, and then just move the copy to the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag it up to the very top. And there, that looks good. And next we're ready to automatically add our elevation dimensions. So I'm going to come up to our automatic dimension tools, and there's an option right here that says auto elevation dimensions. I'm going to click on this option, and Chief will automatically generate dimensions around our view that follow common kitchen and bath standards. Now, the way this tool works changed slightly in version X14, so if you had migrated a template plan forward from version X13 or older, you might get different results than what you're seeing displayed here, and more information about this is available over at the Chief Architect website. In this view, you can edit your dimensions to your liking. If we come over to this dimension string on the left-hand side and we click on it, you'll notice that there's diamond handles going throughout the plan locating objects in the plan. You can remove dimensions on the string by coming over to these diamond handles and simply dragging them off the plan. But if you do this, the program's going to give you a message that you're going to turn off the automatic refresh behavior of this dimension tool. For this example, we're going to go ahead and click on yes, we're okay with that. And then if you ever wanted to add a dimension onto the string, you can click on the string, and notice where I clicked we get an extra diamond handle. I can click and hold on this extra diamond handle and then just click and drag it onto an object in the plan that we would like to dimension. You could further use your text tools and other tools in the program to notate this view. And those are the basics about how the auto elevation dimension tool works. Let's go ahead and save this view and then close it, and then pressing spacebar, at any point we can open up this view, look at it, continue editing it, or send it to a layout by double clicking on the camera callout. Next, let's take a look at how to create a cabinet schedule. There's several places in the program where we can place and manage schedules, but most people do this through the CAD detail management section of the program. So we're going to go up to CAD and then down to CAD detail management. And you can see that I already have a schedules detail started, and then I'm going to click on open. This is going to open up a blank canvas that mainly has our CAD tools available, but to add a cabinet schedule, we're going to go up to tools and then schedules and then cabinet schedule and click once to place it in the plan. You can see how that comes in. If we press spacebar, we can double click on this schedule to modify it. Down here you can see that there's categories that we can include. So if we click on the elevation and then click on add, it'll display in our schedule. Likewise, if you did not want to see some of these columns, you could click on them and then click on the remove button. Let's click on OK. And you can see how the schedule is starting to shape up. And if we wanted to adjust the position of these columns, we can simply select these handles towards the top and move them around within the schedule. If we go back into the floor plan view, you'll notice that our cabinet's updated to have a call out there instead of a label. If we go back to the schedule, double click on it to open up its specification. Under label, you can specify whether you're using both a call and a label or one or the other. Let's go ahead and cancel out of this and then close out of our schedule. We could always access it again through the CAD detail management area of the software. And then next, let's take a look at how to create a custom ceiling design in the example of a tray ceiling. In this example, we're going to create a tray ceiling that has a molding and rope light inserted into it and then has a material on its top. So the first step is to click into the room, and in the bottom toolbar there's an option down here that says make tray ceiling in room. And if I click on it, we're going to open up the tray ceiling specification and it's going to ask how we want to build it. I'm going to specify that the width is going to be 46.5 inches, and this will be how far it starts from the walls. I'm going to press tab and specify that the depth is 8 inches, and then we're going to check this option to recess it up into the ceiling instead of dropping it down into the plan. Next, you can have the sides of the tray ceiling at a pitch if you would like. And then next, we're going to go to the moldings panel to add the molding, and we're going to click on add new. And just like with the wall cabinet, what we're looking for here is the shape of the molding that we want to use. I'm happy with how that shape looks. And then under the height field, I'm going to adjust it to be at 5 1/4. And then we're going to specify a 1/2 inch vertical offset to fit a rope light. And then next, we're going to click on rope lights to add the rope light, and we'll click on add new. And on this rope light specification, if we come down to the moldings panel, here we can specify the molding that is going to be representing the rope light. I'm going to go ahead and specify that the height should be a 1/2 inch and press tab. And then we'll click OK to this, and then click OK to add it to the plan. Next, we're going to get a message asking if we want to see the ceiling planes layer. Let's go ahead and click yes to this, and you can see how it comes into the plan. And this tray ceiling polyline is adjustable, so you can select it and then drag it around to reshape it if you would like. The dimension tools also work on this tray ceiling. But next, let's take a 3D view by going up to our 3D camera tool and clicking and pointing it out at the scene. And you can see how the tray ceiling is starting to come in, and there's a couple of material adjustments we need to make. We're going to use the material eyedropper tool and select the drywall material off the wall. And then in component mode, we're going to adjust our ceiling material. Next, if we take a look at a photo of the finished design, we have a copy of our flooring material up in the tray ceiling, and that flooring material is following the orientation as it is on the floor. So let's go ahead and add this. So first, we're going to use the material eyedropper, select the material off the floor, and click to place it at the top of the tray ceiling. You'll notice that when we add it, it comes in on the wrong orientation. So what we're going to do is create a copy of this material, rotate it 90 degrees, and place it up in the tray ceiling. So the first step here is to use the Adjust Material Definition tool and click on this material. Next, we're going to click on Add to Library, and over in the User Library, you can see where it's coming in. We'll cancel out of this dialog. And next we're going to right click on the material and click on Open Object. And then here under the material name, we're going to name it Wheatfield 90, just so we know we turned it 90 degrees from the other one. And then we're going to check this box that says Keep Pattern and Texture in Sync. And then down under Offset and Angle, we're going to change the angle by 90 degrees. And then press Tab, and you can see how that rotated. And let's click on OK. And over in the 3D preview, you can see how that's rotated. And then we're simply going to select this material, and then come to the top of the tray ceiling and click to apply it. Next, let's close the library browser and then close out of our 3D view. And then next, let's add some can lights, switches, and outlets. And when we're working with electrical objects, we'll want to switch from the kitchen and bath plan view to the electrical plan view. What this is going to do is it's going to turn on and off the display of certain layers and also change the appearance of layers while also changing how the notation tools work so that they're optimized for electrical objects. So let's switch to the electrical plan view. And you can see how our view leans up quite a bit in here, and now the program is optimized for creating an electrical plan. Plan views are a very important part of the program and tie in closely to creating layout sheets, and more information about creating plan views is available over at the Chief Architect website. But what I want to do next is place an array of can lights throughout the plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to our electrical tools, and there's an option here for light, and then I'm going to come into the plan, and I'm just loosely going to click here in the plan, not being specific with the dimensions of it. And then I want to create an array of lights that are evenly spaced apart. I'm going to press space bar and select that can light that we just placed. And in the bottom toolbar, there's an option here that says multiple copy. And when I click on that, there's another button that says multiple copy interval. Here you can specify that you want to continuously place copies of this can light as you drag your mouse across the screen, or place a specific amount of copies that are evenly spaced as you drag the mouse across the screen. We're going to stick with the first option to offset between copies when dragging, and we're going to specify that in our first direction we want to place them 78 inches, and then press Tab, and in the second direction we'll place them 78 inches. So we'll place an array of lights 78 inches this way, and then a 78 inches that way. I'm going to click OK to this dialog, and then I'm going to come over to the can light, and you can see how my mouse changes there when I come over to the can light. And using the right click on my mouse, I'm going to click and hold that right click, and you can see that as I move it down the plan, we add lights, and then I'm going to release my right mouse button, and then while moving my mouse to the left while not clicking anything, we'll place additional copies every 78 inches. When you're happy with how they look, you can left click, and they'll be added to the plan. Next, let's zoom into this area and let's quickly add a switch and show how it's connecting to the lights. So up in the electrical tools, there's an option here for switch. I'm going to come over to the wall and click once to place the switch. Next, using the Connect Electrical tool, you can come over to the switch and show which lights the switch is going to. And that's all the work we're going to do on the can light and the switch and the Connect Electrical option. Next, if we zoom out a little bit and press spacebar, there's an option here that says Auto Place Outlets, and when I select it and come into the room and click once, it'll place outlets throughout the plan, and you'll notice that it places GFCI outlets where it needs them, and you'll also notice the program automatically places a can light above that sink. And that's all the electrical work that we're going to do. There's also a rope light tool if you wanted to draw a rope light going underneath the wall cabinets. Next, let's take a 3D view and talk about rendering techniques. So I'm going to go back to our camera tools, and I'm going to select the full camera, which is the first person point of view, and I'm going to click and point it at the model. And up until now, we've been working in the standard rendering technique with the line drawing overlaid on top of it. When we were in the elevation view, that was using a different rendering technique. It was using the vector view rendering technique. But we can switch our rendering technique being used at any time by pressing this rendering techniques button. And then over in the tool palette, we can switch our view. So if we switch to the vector view, you can see how the detail for the wood flooring was removed, and now we just see a combination of lines and colors. If we switch to the clay rendering technique, you'll notice how all the colors are removed, and there's a lot of cool settings that you can adjust for this rendering technique. If we switch to the glass house rendering technique, we can now see through objects and see what's going on inside of them. There's a technical illustration, a watercolor, a line drawing, and the dual tone, and then there's a lot of different settings that you can adjust about all these. We skipped the physically based ray trace, but this is what produces the photorealistic view of the scene, and there's a lot of settings you can adjust for this, such as the sunlight, your materials, and other technique options. And here's just a few of the settings that impact physically based ray tracing, and more information about creating photorealistic views in the software is available on the Chief Architect website. Next, we'll quickly show how you can create a layout sheet. Here's a layout sheet for the plan that we've been working on, and this layout sheet has a title block. You can put your information, your logo, information about the plan. You can assemble your floor plan views, elevations, schedules, and other views in the plan on this layout for a more formal document. Let's go ahead and press escape to this and take a look at how to send a view to the layout. So back in the plan, let's go ahead and close this camera view. And let's switch from our electrical plan view back to the kitchen and bath plan view. And then to create a new layout, go to File, and then New Layout. And you can see how my layout comes in with my information on it. You could customize this information and save it as a template so that every time you start a new plan or layout, it's already populated and ready to go. But next, to send a view over to the layout, you simply go into your plan file, find the view that you want to send over, whether that is your floor plan view or an elevation view or a schedule or a 3D view. And once you're in that view, there's a button in the top toolbar right here that says Send a Layout. And then when you click on it, the program's going to ask how you want to send that view to the layout. For this plan view, the most important thing we need to specify here is going to be the scale. So let's go ahead and change that to 1/4 inch equals 1 foot, and then click on OK, and you can see how it comes over. Now if I click on this view, you'll notice that there's a polyline border for it, and you can use these handles to modify what's seen in your viewport. So we can narrow that down. So it's looking something more like this, and then move it over to the side over here. And then you could repeat this process for other views such as elevations or schedules or 3D views. Additionally, you can manually place text labels that notate the view, or there's automatic ways to do that as well, and more information about that is available at the Chief Architect website. And as we wind down the webinar, the last thing I wanted to take a look at is how to create a glass shower like you see here in the photo. This photo is using the physically based ray trace rendering technique with a line drawing overlaid on top of it. And what we're going to look at in regards to glass showers is how to use the glass shower wall tools and add a glass door. And in the interest of time, I already got an iteration of the bath design started that has a few items in place. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that file. And there I've brought it in, and then let's go ahead and save that file that we've been working on and close it. And then we'll save the layout and close it as well. And here you can see we have that kitchen space that we're working on, and then over to the right hand side we have the suite and we have the bath started. So let's begin by getting into a 3D view, and I'm going to get into the perspective floor overview. And then we're just going to shift our focus over into this area of the design. And let's bring our 3D view side by side with our floor plan view. And then the first thing I want to do is I want to add a barn door up in this area over here. So in the floor plan view, I'm going to press space bar, go up to our door tools, select the barn door tool, and come over to the wall. And you'll notice that as I move my mouse, we can change which side the door is on. And I'm just going to click once to add the door. And you can see how it got added in the 3D view. And if we swing our view around, you can see how it already has hardware on it. And then next, in the floor plan view, If I select on the door, you'll notice that there's a little handle for the door for how far we want to show it open in the 3D view. If we click on this button in the bottom toolbar. And then in the floor plan view, let's dimension this barn door from the wall on the left-hand side. So I'm going to turn back on our temporary dimensions, click on that door one more time, and you can see that it's currently about 33.5 inches from that wall. But I'm just going to select that dimension, type in my new desired value, and press enter. And from the wall to the door casing, it's now 36 inches. And then back in the 3D view, let's swing our view inside the bathroom. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how the glass wall tool works. So back in the floor plan view, I'm going to go up to the wall tools. I'm going to select the straight glass wall tool, and I'm going to come in and click and drag the glass wall tool, and you can see a temporary dimension indicating its length. And I'm not trying to be specific with these wall lengths. I'm just eyeballing it for the remainder of this demonstration. But you can see in the 3D view how that comes in. It's just a sheet of glass. Back in the floor plan view, let's go ahead and delete those walls. And then let's turn off our temporary dimensions. But next, let's see what the glass pony wall tool looks like. So I'm going to come in and select the tool and then roughly draw those walls where I want them to be. And you can see how the program adds them. We have a glass upper wall type, a wall cap, and then a different lower wall type. If we take a look at a photo of what the final shower looks like, what we're going to end up having is a 6-inch lower wall type that acts as a curb, and we're also going to adjust the material to be a stone material. So let's do that next. So in the floor plan view, I'm going to press space bar and then select the first wall and then select the second wall and then open up their specification. There's a couple of changes I'm going to make here. The first is we're going to specify no room moldings exterior or interior so they don't build on those walls. And then next we're going to go to the wall types panel, and here you can see the upper wall type we're using is a glass shower wall type. And then the pony wall lower wall type is an interior wall type, and it's got one side tiled, and we can see that in the 3D preview. Down below you can see the height of that wall, and let's go ahead and adjust it to be the curb by specifying that's going to be 6 inches and pressing tab. Here you can specify where your pony walls are going to be aligned, and we're fine with them aligned at the center. And then you can also specify how you want them to display in the plan view. But next, let's create a custom wall type that has the stone that we're going to use and apply it to the plan. So over at the pony wall lower wall type, we're going to click on define, and this is going to open up our wall types definition. Here you can see that this wall type has a drywall material that's a 1/2 inch thick, has a 2x4 stud, backer board, a mortar material, and then a white tile material. Let's create a copy of this wall type and adjust it to our specifications. So we're going to click on copy, and then I'm going to highlight the name, and then I'm going to give it a new name. And then we're going to come down to this drywall layer, select it, and simply remove it. Next, we're going to change the white tile material to be the stone material that we want to use. So I'm going to click on it. And if you wanted to add more layers to the wall type definition, you can do so through these buttons right here. But for now, all we're going to be doing is modifying this layer. So I'm going to double click on it. And then I'm going to type the name of the material that I want to use. Select it, and then click on OK. You can see it's being used there, and if you want to adjust the thickness right here, you could. And you can see what it's going to look like in the floor plan view with all of the wall layers turned on, and you can also adjust how this preview looks through the drop down right here. So you can see it, and let's change it to be the standard rendering technique. And so next we need to get copies of these 3 wall layers to the other side down here. So starting with our backer board, we're going to click on Insert Below. You can see how that creates a copy of it. And then we're just going to move the layer down until it's on the interior side. And then we'll do the same thing with the inset mortar, create a copy of the layer, and then move it down to the other side. And then the same thing with the stone, create a copy of it and move it down to the other side. You can see how that's starting to look, and if you're happy with how that looks, you can click on OK. In the vector view preview, you can see how it looks, and you can see the wall cap right here. And let's go ahead and change the height to match the stone thickness of a 1/2 inch. And then we'll adjust the material in the 3D view. But for now, let's click on OK. You can see how our view updates. And then the next thing we need to do is get the wall cap to match the wall material. So we're going to go up to the material eyedropper, select the material off the wall, make sure we're just in component mode, and then click on the wall cap. And there we've got that wall complete. Pressing spacebar, the next step in the shower design, if we move into the shower, you can see that we have a room molding present here. So let's go ahead and adjust this. So I'm going to double click in the room. It's going to open up the room specification, and let's go ahead and name it as a shower while we're here. And then we're going to go down to the moldings panel, uncheck that we want to use the default, and then simply delete it, and then click on OK. You can see how the molding is removed in the 3D view, and in the floor plan view you can see how our room label there updated to be a shower. And then let's zoom out a little bit. And then the next step is to add the glass shower door. So we're going to come up to our door tools. There's an option here that says shower door. And if we come into the plan and click once to place it, you can see how it got placed. And by default it places on the floor. But if we double click on it to open up its specification, there's an option right here that says floor to bottom. And we can specify that that's going to be 6 inches. Click on OK. And you can see how it raises it so it's sitting on top of the curb. And then back in the floor plan view, if we select it, you can use this triangle handle to specify how far it's displaying open. And since we have a glass shower right here, you probably need it to swing both directions. So let's open up the door specification again. Come to the options panel. And there's a checkbox here that says swings both directions. So we're just going to check that and then click on OK. And you can see how it displays in the floor plan view now. And then next, let's get this door positioned next to the drywall so that it's residing on the tile backsplash layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn back on our temporary dimensions. In the floor plan view, click on the door, and you can see where that dimension is coming in. And we're going to click on it, specify that it's going to be located a 1/2 inch away, which is the tile thickness, and then press enter. And you can see how that door looks in the plan. And then the next adjustment we need to make is to these shower walls so that they match the door height. So I'm going to select our wall, and then I'm just going to come in and drag it down until it matches the door height. And then we'll do the same thing on this side, just drag it down until it matches. And that's starting to look good. And then if we look at the final photo of the shower, the last step here is to adjust the flooring material. So we're going to come into the shower, use the material eyedropper tool to select the material off the wall niche, make sure we're in component mode, and then just click on the floor to apply it to the floor. And that's going to complete the shower design. Next, you may have noticed that there's a custom vanity over in this area of the plan. We're out of time for this webinar today, but information on how to make this vanity is available over at the Chief Architect website. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this demonstration. There are a lot of resources available on the Chief Architect website to aid in learning the program, including training videos, how-to articles, manuals, on-demand classes, one-on-one personal training, and more. You can learn about these resources on the Chief Architect website or from within the program by selecting the Help tab at the very top of your screen. And lastly, a free trial is available over at the Chief Architect website. Thanks again for attending the Kitchens, Baths, and Interiors Boot Camp webinar, and have a great rest of your day.